was really interesting listening to some of the comments that Biden was in, but one thing that kind of stood out to me was he said there was a Quinnipiac poll that had him ahead by 6 points of Trump, and that's true. But none of the other polls have a margin anywhere near like that. There was a Fox one that had them tied, and every other poll that's recent has Trump ahead by between 1 and 4 points. So Biden pointed out this poll that he's ahead, but then he also said, well, I don't think polls really matter that much right now. It's too early. People don't answer their phones anymore. It's hard to even get anybody to respond to one, whatever. And that to me was really interesting because it's just something you hear people start saying when they're behind in the polls.
Welcome to Reporter's Notebook, where we talk to the Washington Examiner's top journalists about the stories breaking on their beats. I'm Jim Antle, and I'm joined today by White House reporter Haisten Willis. Haisten, President Biden had a big event talking about Foxconn. That's a real callback to the Trump years. What was the message he was trying to send?
I think the message was all about contrast with this stuff. This was in Racine, Wisconsin, near Milwaukee, between Milwaukee and Chicago. I was on this trip as a pool reporter, and Biden was on the site of this Foxconn deal that Trump really touted back in 2017 and 18. It was supposed to be a $10 billion deal, I think 15,000 jobs. Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker was there. Ryan, the former Speaker of the House, was there. This is supposed to be a very, very big deal. The project materialized a little bit, but not very much. It was only like maybe 10% of what really was touted that day. So Biden was there to talk about a Microsoft project on the exact same piece of land. So again, contrast. I'm going to deliver where Trump failed. The president of Microsoft was there. It's supposed to be a $3.3 billion project. I think it's supposed to be like 2,300 permanent jobs, something like that. And again, just trying to play up that contrast between the two teams.
So Wisconsin's obviously a pretty important state in this next presidential election. Hillary Clinton got made fun of a lot for whether she spent enough time there. In 2016, Trump won the state that year. Biden won it in 2020. Republicans are having their convention there in Milwaukee. Talk us through a little bit about what the political dynamic is now.
Yeah, it's not a coincidence at all that this was all happening in Wisconsin. Both parties really want to win this state very badly. Trump won it in 2016. Biden won it in 2020. He was there to talk about that project because he's trying to win the state of Wisconsin. He also had a campaign event in the same city later on the day. He had another fundraiser in Chicago, but I think most of the money raised in Chicago is probably going to end up going over to back to Wisconsin or to Michigan, another state they really want to win that's in that region. So again, that's what the Microsoft project was all about, was him trying to, again, show that contrast, saying he succeeded, Trump didn't deliver, and I did.
And Wisconsin in recent polling has been a pretty close state. Trump's had an advantage in most of the battlegrounds, but that's one that they're really closely contested right now.
Definitely. It was really interesting listening to some of the comments that Biden was in, but one thing that kind of stood out to me was he said there was a Quinnipiac poll that had him ahead by 6 points of Trump, and that's true. But none of the other polls have a margin anywhere near like that. There was a Fox one that had them tied, and every other poll that's recent has Trump ahead by between 1 and 4 points. So Biden pointed out this poll that he's ahead, but then he also said, well, I don't think polls really matter that much right now. It's too early. People don't answer their phones anymore. It's hard to even get anybody to respond to one, whatever. And that to me was really interesting because it's just something you hear people start saying when they're behind in the polls. I heard Ron DeSantis, for example, say that a whole lot last year. There's historic examples.
The only poll that matters is election day, is usually what people say.
I talked to I talked to a Republican strategist just a few hours ago, and he was saying that's the next thing you hear Biden say. You know, if these polls continue to show him behind, the only poll that matters is on election day. But it's never really a good thing to hear a politician start saying things like that as we get closer to election. Of course, we're still way out. There's lots of examples of people being ahead or behind, and then things change. Michael Dukakis, 1988. Hillary Clinton in 2016 was believed to be way ahead. She was up by 12 points in a CNN poll 2 weeks before that election. Obviously ended up losing. So there's plenty of space to go, but not a good sign from the Biden camp hearing the president saying these kinds of things about, don't worry about these polls that show that I'm losing.
I mean, conventions have obviously been an important part of turning points in elections. So we're still pretty far out from that. But obviously you'd rather be ahead than behind.
Absolutely. I don't think he would be downplaying the polls if he was ahead in them. So we'll see what happens going forward. There is some truth to that polls used to be conducted on landlines, and now there's just trouble. People don't want to answer their cell phone. Somebody really has a landline, or if they do, they're probably like very old.
It skews the sample older.
Very skewed, yeah, exactly. And so, we'll see. Again, the polls didn't really hold very well in 2016. They didn't. Right. They held a little bit better in 2020, but they haven't been super reliable in recent cycles. So there is something to what Biden's saying. He's not totally making this up or anything, right. But obviously there's a motive there to downplay them because most of them are showing him behind in many of the key swing states.
So Biden made a little bit of news with a rare interview appearance where he talked about his position on something with regard to Israel. He's been trying to really thread the needle on Israel's war in Gaza. What has the reaction been?
Well, on the Republican side, it certainly hasn't been good, and on the Democratic side,
he wants to condition future aid based on an Israeli military offensive.
Yes, exactly. And of course, that came out just a few days after he made the speech at the Holocaust Museum here in Washington, saying how his ironclad support of Israel, very much against anti-Semitism. There was no equivocation in that speech. He didn't say anything about Islamophobia. It was all his support of Israel. So then a few days later, we have this news about him potentially holding back weapons. The Republicans are very upset about this. They're even comparing it to well, isn't this kind of what Trump got in trouble for with Ukraine? The president isn't really supposed to hold back something that Congress approved. That's not really his job, et cetera, et cetera. They're certainly upset about it. He didn't answer any questions about it that I saw yesterday. But one thing that did say out to me was he was about to get on Air Force One yesterday. A reporter yelled out, "Why did you hold back the weapons?" He stopped, he turned around, kind of had this confused look on his face. She shouted the question again, and then he would just walk right up into the plane. He either didn't totally hear it or wasn't interested in answering it for us. Mentioned it some, I think, in the CNN interview. But this is going to be, I think, pretty controversial for him. We yesterday, or on the trip, heard plenty of Palestine protests outside both of the campaign stops. This is something he's going to keep hearing about. There's a lot of people on the left that are upset about this, so he's got to kind of try to find that middle room, and he's certainly going to hear about it from Republicans.
Thank you, Haisten.
Absolutely.
You can read Haisten and the rest of our political team's coverage at washingtonexaminer.com.